Hi there. I had a couple of people ask me about the process of writing the Thompson Twins books. And I've written about it a couple of times, but I figured I would just record a video and just encapsulate some of that and hopefully answer some of those questions. We're being joined by Sadie in the background there, cuddled up on her little bed. So, um, real big picture, Heidi and her family and me and my family work independently and then collaboratively on this. So usually what happens is Heidi and I chat either in person or via Zoom or over the phone or whatever about what we're interested in doing for whatever the next book is. And in fact, we just had a meeting about book four. So we kind of have a plan for that. And once we have that conversation, which usually is focused on, okay, where's the setting? What kind of topics do we want to cover? What kind of research ideas are we interested in? And ultimately, what's the mystery and what's the solution? Usually we come away from that meeting with a pretty good understanding of those basics. I then go and I write a draft. And when I'm done with my draft, I give it to my children, Dylan and Parker, and they go through and they give me feedback. They tell me this section doesn't work, or that's too slow, or I want to know about this. I wish this was a choice. And so I take their feedback and I work it in there. Sometimes I turn to them also and I say, I need a character. Can you give me a name of somebody? Or, create a character for me. Tell me who they are, what they look like, what their interests are, whatever. And Dylan and Parker will do that. Especially with book two, the one set in the comic book store. They were really instrumental in creating a number of the characters and kind of giving their personality quirks and that kind of thing. So I get feedback from them, but they also then will go through and do an editorial pass where they look for grammatical errors and typos and that kind of thing, and clean it up for me. And then I make any final adjustments and I send it over to the Burns family, and Heidi looks at it and she makes it better. That's really the simplest way of describing it. It is always better after she's looked at it. And, it sometimes is a matter of her cutting down my tangents, or, she's much more interested in description and detail than I am. I hate writing that. And when I read a lot of times, I kind of scan the description. I probably shouldn't admit that, but it's true. And so she adds description, she modifies, changes, does whatever she needs to do. She finds errors that I've made and improves it. Her son, AJ, also then reads it. He's also responsible for going through and creating these little images at the beginning of each of the chapters. That are thematically linked to the chapter in some way. Visual clues, I guess, as to what's going on. Her husband, Matt, also will read the books and give us feedback on them as well. On my side, Gail is often more involved at the beginning part of the process, although, I talk with her about struggles I'm having as well. This time around, we had Piper Cleveland do the art for it, and her art inspired a lot of the revisions of the book as well. So we kind of had given Piper big picture idea of what we're interested in. And when she came back with this drawing, Heidi was like, well, this should happen at night and we should have a flashlight. And so she used a lot of Piper's visual additions to the story and worked them into the book that way also. And then, so then when Heidi is done, she sends it back to me, and I put it kind of in the form for the publisher. At this time, they're through the Amazon Kindle, I think it's KDP, Kindle Digital Publishing, something like that. They have a specific format they want it to look look like. They make sure they review it, make sure it doesn't have extra pages in there that are blank. They make sure the title matches, and I'm sure it's probably mostly automated. But essentially, when they're done, they give us the green light, and boop, it's suddenly live, whether we want it to be or not. Sometimes that happens faster. Sometimes they reject it for various reasons, and we have to make revisions and changes. I guess the other piece of it is I do make the interactive digital version, which some people enjoy. We don't sell nearly as many of the Kindle versions as we do the actual physical paperbacks. But, I go through and I link them. So when you have your Kindle or e-reader and you want to go to chapter 7, you click on it and it takes you right there. Those kind of simple things are just make the reading experience a little different. Figure we may as well embrace the technology as best we can. So, but that's kind of how we work and collaborate. And I'll say, I very much enjoy the process of collaboration. The work is always better afterwards. If I tried to write these on my own, in this particular case, for example, it would have been more bloated. It would have had an extra 25 pages or so. And, some people might have wanted more material, maybe. But ultimately, were really important to us that they're similar size, that we're consistent kind of from book to book. And so Heidi does a really good job of that. To give you a couple concrete examples, one of the things that happened in the opening chapter that I'll read later this week is I made a bunch of references to all these restaurants in Duluth that I enjoyed when we went to Duluth. And so there was like a reference to Oink Cluck Moo barbecue, and there was one reference to the Love Creamery, and those were details that I thought were relevant. Ultimately, they kind of slowed down the story, and those tangents and the explanation of what was there didn't really add to the mystery, and especially since it was the first chapter, it slowed that down, and we needed it to be a little bit quicker. Some of the other chapters got cut or condensed because I went into all kinds of different detail about like the salaries of butlers and maids and things that are interesting, but again, slow down the story and maybe aren't necessarily something a 3rd to 6th grader wants to read necessarily. So, it's always better as a result of that collaboration. So anyway, that's a little bit about that process. If you have any other questions, by all means, shoot us an email. You can do that at ttmysteries@gmail.com. You can put them in the comments. You can text me, Facebook message, whatever works for you. And either Heidi or I or both of us will be happy to respond. So thanks so much.